AMAVA, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with where it all began for you in the music industry. What made you want to get into it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Central Oregon, and the town that I lived in, it was very tiny. I grew up in a town of like between 1,200 and like 1,600 people. So I went to a very small school district. And the school I grew up in had this program actually called the Americana Project.
Mhm.
And it was basically how to become a musician. And so I grew up from the fifth grade to when I graduated high school, like learning how to write songs, being on stage, building a guitar, basically just like how to be an artist. And it was such an incredible program, and it really fostered my creativity. And eventually, when I wanted to go to college and move out to Nashville, I didn't want to be anything but a musician. And I had always had an interest in music even before I started that program. And it just like kind of grew from there, basically.
Yeah, doing some research into the Americana project, it looks crazy. Like
Yeah.
they get you building guitars and ukuleles. Like,
Yeah. It's it's wild. Like I am so lucky to have gone through a program like that, because obviously that's not offered at a lot of schools. But the Americana Project also partners with the Sisters Folk Festival. I'm from Sisters, Oregon. And you also go on to play that festival, and work with incredible folk artists. And I really just grew up in such an amazing community that really set me up just for having such a love and appreciation of music.
do you feel like it shaped the way you are now, or do you feel like you would have ended up in music if you didn't go down that way?
Um, I definitely think it shaped the way I am now, because I was actually born in San Francisco and lived there for the first couple of years of my life, and then my family made the move to Central Oregon, and I like basically grew up there. That's how I always think of it. And if I'd stayed in, California, I definitely think I would have gone down a different like career path, and just being exposed to that program really put music right in front of me. And I grew up in a very musical family. My dad was in like a jam band, and my sisters and I were all interested in piano and guitar. But I think being exposed to it every single day in a school setting just really kind of set me up for that like lifelong interest.
Hmm. What was it like growing up in the middle of nowhere?
Um, it's quite interesting. It was a no stoplight town. There was like only stop signs is always the way I describe it to people. But being from California, like originally, like I saw a little bit of like the San Francisco Bay Area, and knew the big city. And then moving there, I had a class size of 100 people, and I knew everybody and everybody's business, and everyone knew each other. And yeah, I mean, it just was, looking back on it, I appreciate it. But obviously, like when I was a teenager living in a tiny town, I was like, oh, I can't wait to get like, to a big city, and like, anything it's larger than 1,200 people. But like looking back on it, I really appreciate it. And my family just like really wanted that slower lifestyle for us. Whereas if we'd grown up in San Francisco, it would have been like a very, different life.
Kind of worked out in your favor in the end, didn't
Yeah, exactly.
it? What was it like moving to Nashville, especially from such a quiet town? Are you still in a quiet part of Nashville, or are you in the big city?
Um, I started coming to Nashville before I started college. I was around like 15, 16, and my dad would drive cross country for work. And back then, I had a huge interest in Taylor Swift, as most people did. And I wanted to come to Nashville. And back then, I was doing like indie folk music because that's what I had grown up doing. And I would come to Nashville with my guitar and play music around town and at different venues. And I ended up meeting my now publisher when I was like 15, 16 in an art gallery, actually. And so I knew that I wanted to be in Nashville just because of the music industry here. And I had heard about the college that I went to, Belmont University. And when I was 18, I moved out here and got a degree in music business. And I've just been here ever since. And it's like a big city compared to, where I grew up, obviously, but I'm in such like a beautiful area of Nashville that it definitely feels like, you know, I don't know, just a small community. And especially being in the pop music industry in Nashville, it's an even smaller community. So yeah, I love Nashville.
How did you make the move from folk to what I would call electric pop. Like a big
Yeah,
jump.
yeah, definitely. So I grew up listening to pop music, like with my family. I grew up on like Britney Spears and, Avril Lavigne. And, but then when I was in Oregon, I was only ever really exposed to indie folk. And that was what everyone in my school did and like the folk festival. So I grew up loving and writing folk music, and I still love folk music. And then around like early high school is when I discovered Tumblr. And when I got Tumblr and became integrated into like that community, I discovered Lana Del Rey and Lorde and like Marina and the Diamonds and just like every just like 2014 Tumblr artists that you can think of. And that was like my first like real introduction into like being involved in pop music. Like I'd listened to it, but I'd never been a part of like a fandom and a community like I was on Tumblr. And then when I was listening to those artists, I was like, I think I relate to this type of music more. I like this sound more. This feels more me because I had started to like, you know, dress like Tumblr style and everything. And I was like, I want to do pop music. And so when I was moving here, I was meeting all these incredible producers that were coming up in the pop scene here, where there wasn't much of that in Oregon because I was writing everything on acoustic guitar and piano. And then here, I really got introduced to like, the pop and like electronic scene and just like absolutely fell in love with pop music. And it's my favorite genre. And yeah, I don't think I would ever see myself in any other genre just because I feel most at home in the pop genre.
You feel like you'd make the move to California? Because you have like a very, I guess, electronic and pop music is big in California. I don't know how big it is in Nashville. I don't even know how big the music scene is in Nashville. I feel like every second
Yeah.
person I speak to is from Nashville, though.
Yeah, I there is a huge pop community in Nashville. When I first moved here, it wasn't as large, but in the last couple of years, it has just exploded. And it's such an amazing community here. And I spent some time in California during college. I did a like, it wasn't abroad, but it was called Belmont West, and I spent a semester out there and like doing an internship and working then in the music business out there. And I think eventually it's like a dream of mine to move to LA because I love the pop scene there as well. But um, obviously California is very expensive, so that's gonna take some time. But I eventually want to start going out there a little bit more and doing writing trips. I was doing a couple of those in like 2018, 2019 before pandemic. And I definitely want to get back out there as well as New York as well, I think eventually.
How did you come up with the name AMAVA?
Yeah, so obviously I was going by Madison Slicker for a long time, and I had music out under that name, and it was all indie folk. And when I decided to transition into pop music, I was like, I don't really want to go, by my real name. I want to have an extension of who I am. And all the artists that I listened to, like Lord and Halsey, had, stage names. And I spent quite a few years trying to come up with a name that I felt like fit me, and just nothing stuck. And then there's all like the trademarks and everything, and a lot of stuff was taken, or I didn't feel at home in any name. And then I was actually on a road trip with my best friend, and we were talking about it, and out of the blue she was like, what about AMAVA? And I was like, yep. That's it. And I have not looked back since then, and I don't know, it stuck right away.
Yeah. Well, it's a definitely um, a pop name. Like it just, for some
Yeah.
reason, just screams pop music.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for when I was trying to figure out a name. And then I don't know, now like people will call me AMAVA in person, and it's like, still a little bit jarring, obviously, because I will get called across the room like, hey AMAVA, and like it doesn't register for a second. I'm like, oh, that's for me. But yeah, I love it.
Do you feel like your degree has helped you somewhat in the music industry?
Yeah, so my degree was in music business with an emphasis on the business part. You can either have an emphasis in law, production, or business. And I chose business, and it was a lot of obviously business courses. But a lot of my professors were adjuncts, meaning they were all working in the music industry, and they were all lawyers, publishers, producers, just like people very high up in the industry and the connections I made during college, I don't think I ever would have been able to make, obviously, without going. So yeah, and it also has just given me a sense of, I don't know, just how to like present yourself like in the music business, and taking all those law classes. Like I know how to read contracts, and I think it's important to like know that, especially as a musician, because you don't want to get taken advantage of in a contract. And I think just having that skill set, being able to like read your license agreements and your contracts and just really anything has really helped.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You find it hard being independent?
Yes and no. I think it's one of the most exciting times to be an independent artist because you really can do whatever you want. And I do have a publisher, and he's great at just like letting me do whatever I want, and just being like, go for it. Like, your crowd and your demographic better than anyone could. And yeah, I just think it's a really exciting time because you get to take control and like, take the reins of your career. Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, well, we live in the world where you can just release music
Yeah,
even off your phone these days. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And I think that that's super exciting because people who have never had that opportunity to release music are able to and get to, explore that path and that passion.
You spoke on some of your inspirations, but who's been your biggest inspiration?
Um, I think my longest and like largest inspiration is definitely Taylor Swift. I've been listening to her since 2006 when her debut album came out. And I just have listened to her through all of her genres and just loved her. And I think she just presents herself in such an inspiring way through her songwriting. But in like the pop sphere, I really love Charlie XCX. Dua Lipa is one of my favorite artists as well. And a lot of just like the local pop musicians here as well. I just like love and like look up to, and they're my peers basically, but I'm always like looking up to them.
Hmm. And if you had to do the whole music career again, would you change anything?
Um, yes and no. I think that like every decision I've made along the way has gotten to me like where I am right now, and I'm very happy with where I am right now. I think that if I could do anything differently, it would just be to like discover my love for pop music a little bit younger. And I also would have loved to started producing and learning how to produce a little bit younger as well, because I'm learning how to produce right now. And I see people like in their early teens learning how to produce, and I wish that I had done that.
Yeah, there's people age of 10
Yeah.
making insane beats. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I wish that I had just like sat down and forced myself to do that.
Yeah. Well, at a young age, spending like $700 to $1,000 is like almost impossible on a good
Yeah.
uh, platform to produce music. So
Mm.
it makes sense on why that never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
um, how have you feel like you've progressed from your first release of Blush to your new release now, Muse? Do you feel like you've progressed much in the way you sound and how you work?
Oh yeah, for sure. I just feel like I'm more sure of myself as an artist because that first song I put out, I still love. Um, and I just remember putting it out, being like, I'm gonna do pop music, but I didn't really know what sphere of pop I wanted to do it in quite yet. And yeah, I just feel like I'm more confident as ever as an artist. And I look back on that song like, I'm very happy about that song. But yeah, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I would have done this differently or this or this. And I apologize if you can hear the lawnmowers. They are deciding to mow the lawn right next to my window right now. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't regret any release I've ever put out, but I do see like the growth in between releases. And I'm always like very happy to see that growth because, without growth, you're never going to progress.
What's been your biggest learning experience?
Learning experience. I think just graduating college was a big one because, being an artist in college, it was like everything still revolved around being a student. at the same time. So I was like doing music and songwriting sessions and recording sessions like outside of going to school and like, having this routine. And after graduating, I'm now like a full-time artist and writer, and I get paid to do it. And I'm so lucky to be able to do that. But having to like make my own schedule and be like, okay, this week is for sessions. This week is for working on the next song. This week we are doing like all press and everything. That's been like the biggest learning experience, is just like time management as an artist, and like, where to focus your time, and like, what can be put off, and like what needs to be focused on right that second. That's just been like a huge, I don't know, just like learning experience.
You said you're a full-time artist?
Yeah.
You don't have a side job?
No, I do this full time, which
That
I'm
is
so
crazy.
lucky. Yeah, I mean, I'm like, yeah, I can't even explain like how lucky I am to be able to do that, because I have so many friends that are artists that obviously work side jobs or full-time jobs, and they're like, artist career is like, their passion and everything. But I am in a very, very lucky place to be able to do this. And it's like definitely something that I don't take lightly. I'm so lucky and so happy I can do this full time.
Your parents must be worried as hell.
Yeah, yeah. But my parents are and were always so supportive of my music career. I mean, my dad was driving me cross country, and they knew that I was interested in music at a young age. And if they were like, if you're interested in music, we're going to push you to do music. And they definitely have stuck to that. And my dad calls me every day and it's like, how's music going and everything? And he just called me like a little bit before this and was like, how's the streaming numbers and everything? And yeah, I'm very lucky to have supportive parents as well.
It's wild that like parents of age kind of grasp how things work. It's like, oh, how's your
Mm.
streaming numbers? It's like back in their
Yeah.
day, they didn't have streaming numbers. They had like CD sales and stuff.
Yeah,
But
my dad sends me like playlists that he makes from time to time, and it's like all songs that I have shown him. Like he'll send me a song and be like, "This is a great song, like check this out," and I'm like, "I sent you that song like 5 or 6 months ago, Dad."
oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Were they worried about you moving to Nashville and pursuing music as a full-time career?
Um, no. So I started Belmont a semester late, because my mom passed away the like week before that I was supposed to leave for Belmont. And so I ended up deciding to do a semester at home to be able to like, grieve and cope with that. And then I was just at that point kind of ready to leave Oregon. I need to like not start fresh, but just like be in a different place in my life, because I felt like I was going nowhere at that point, just like living at home.
Hmm.
And my dad was like, if you want to go, like, I want you to go, like, to be able to go and like, flourish and just like, make something of yourself, and like, make your mom proud, make me proud, make yourself proud, most of all. And so when I eventually came out here, he knew I was ready. And I think he was ready for me also to like, be out here and just, do my best and follow my passion.
Where did your inspiration for Muse come from? Because I read somewhere that a lot of your stuff comes from experiences and how you're feeling at that point of time. Muse is very
Yeah.
deep when you listen to the lyrics.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, like in the beginning, I had kind of taken a little bit of a break from writing. Um, Obviously, a lot of people didn't really know what they were doing, and I didn't know if music and like, live shows and just the music industry was ever gonna be able to like come back. And so I took a little bit of a break, and I was doing so many sessions right before 2020, and I hadn't like sat down and like written on the piano or guitar in years. And during like halfway through the first part of 2020, I like really fell back in love with writing on the upright piano that I have back here. And it's incredibly out of tune, but it's a great piano. And I just like would start a lot of stuff on there and like either finish it or just like throw it to the side. But with Muse, I had this idea of like, I loved the word muse just in general. And like, I'm very into like fashion and makeup. And there's always like the trend of like, the muse going around. And it's like very much inspired by like the 60s and 70s, like groupie or like rock star girlfriend look. And I just loved that word. But I was like, how can I like reclaim this word and like make it different, you know, than what the like definition of it is. And so I had these chords and I had like a little bit of a melody structure, and I just started like humming the part that was like the I don't want to be your muse. And I was like, I just like love this idea. And I started it really slow on the piano, and it was originally supposed to be a ballad, which like listening to it now, like I don't think that ever would have worked just because the message is so strong and I think it needs to be hammered home. And I took it to this incredible producer, Lucas Aarons, and he was like, this is not a ballad, like we're gonna blow this into like a pop song. And we finished it, and it just like became what it is now. And I'm so proud of this song. And it's like one of my, I feel like everyone says that about their newest release, but you know, one of my favorite songs I've ever written and released. And yeah, I just like, I'm very proud of the message that I'm getting across, because I think it's a good way of like reclaiming your identity.
Well, how you describe it now is not how I interpret it. I interpret it as like a insane breakup type thing.
Yeah, no, definitely, you know, is based on that for sure. And it's just, yeah, I was writing it based off of like the idea of just being like, I am not going to be there just for somebody's like consumption, basically, meaning like, you know, if you're dating a musician, it's like they're writing all these songs about you. Like, you know, sometimes you want to be like, I'm more than like just those songs. It's like I am my own person, and I'm not there just to like, you know, be this like inspiration and this muse. And you know, the main line, like, I don't want to be your muse, like I don't want to just be used. It's like I want to be more than just that.
It's very Taylor Swift of you.
Yeah. Definitely.
um, I don't want to go too deep into it, but did you ever feel like just giving up in music when your mum passed, or just giving up in music in general? Because you've been doing this for, I want to say, 10 to 13 years.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely been phases of my life where I've just like want to pack it up and, you know, go on into something else. But it's like when people ask me like, you know, if I could do anything else, like what I'd want to do. To me, I was like, I don't have any other plan B. It's like I've only ever been interested in music. I feel like I'm not good at anything else other than just like being an artist and, you know, music. And that's like my like biggest passion in life. So for me, it's like there's no other option than just to like do what I want to do. And there's like extensions of like music that I would love to get into, like, or being an artist that I would love to get into, like, you know, makeup or fashion, or like, you know, create like creative directors or something like that. Um, but after my mom passed, I think I did go through a little bit of phase where I was just like, I just don't know what I'm doing in general. So it's like, how could I make a decision on like what I want to do for the rest of my life if I can't even decide what I'm doing like a couple hours from now, just because everything in my life was so unstable then. Um, yeah, obviously just losing a parent's like one of the hardest things that you can go through. And especially like I was 18 at the time, and you know, an 18-year-old losing their mom, it's like you're just ripping away like that stable ground basically. And I had to then grow up and mature very quickly because, you know, I was 18, I just graduated high school. I was like, I just want to party and like hang out with my friends and like go to college and, you know, have a good time. But it's like I had to mature really quickly because I wanted to be there for my family, but also like be there for myself and like, you know, be able to rely on myself that like, okay, I need to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. And so I feel like I matured really quickly and then kind of got my shit together a little bit. And when I came here, I was like, okay, we're just focusing on music and that's it. And then in the beginning of the pandemic, as I said a little bit before, there was like a couple months where I was like, I don't know if there's gonna be any music industry to come back to, any venues to come back to, like any studios to go to. So there was a couple months where I was like, I obviously was very lucky to even be bored during the pandemic, because obviously so many people were wondering where their next paycheck was coming from. And then I was able to sustain being an artist through the pandemic, which is such a luxury. And again, something that I don't take for granted. And the first couple of months I was like, I'm just really bored and I just need something else to focus on. So I was wondering like, should I go back to school and, you know, get a degree in something else, or like take a couple of classes and like get licensed in something and do something else. And I was releasing music through the pandemic, but And I'm really proud of everything that I released during the pandemic. But like looking back on it, I was like, when I was releasing stuff, I had no idea what I was doing. And there was times where I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be releasing stuff and there's going to be a place to ever perform this in. So, but then, as 2020 went on and 2021, I think I got more of a stable ground. And as things started to open back up here slowly, it's like, okay, like things are still moving and life is still happening for the music industry. So yeah, it's been interesting time as a musician.
Like as an artist, and from over here in Australia, I'm not an artist, so I don't know what it's
Mm.
like, but like, was it like in the height of the pandemic, was it always just that thought of nothing's going to come back? Like, you didn't think it was all just going to kind of like roll through, or was it just like worst case scenario type thing?
I think it was like very worst case scenario because my mind automatically jumps to that a lot of the time. And just like I'm a very much a planner as well. And like, I just was like, well, financially, where am I going to be in 5 years if this continues the way? Because like, like I still want to be an artist, but like, how can I do that if it's going to keep going on and on? And unfortunately, here a lot of venues have closed that I'm like very upset about and weren't able to sustain through the pandemic, or the land was sold to somebody else during the pandemic. And yeah, I've seen just so many people also just get out of the music industry, especially the live music industry. I know so many people that work tours and everything and just have completely changed jobs, like to something just not even like related to the music industry at all. And so it was like, well, if all these people are changing jobs, like, should I be doing the same thing just to like have that financial stability eventually? And eventually I came back down to earth a little bit and like, got realistic about it. And yeah, it's just been an interesting time for sure. Just, as a musician, just being able to sustain being an artist through a worldwide pandemic like that was just, yeah, definitely one for the books.
Especially being an independent artist, like that in itself is just wild. Like, like
Yeah.
being independent and still sustaining like in a music business. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, there's
Yeah.
big artists that just crumbled over not being able to tour, and then
Oh,
here's a
yeah.
lot of independent artists being like, well, we can do it.
Yeah. Cause I mean, touring is like where you make most, if not like all of your money from. And like, if you're not able to do that as a big artist, it's like, what do you have? But like, even as like a smaller independent artist, you like, you rely on those local venues and those local shows so much for like your career. It's like when there wasn't that, it was like, well, what else do you have basically?
Hmm. Well, I guess you guys don't have $1 million houses that you need to keep
Yeah.
paying mortgages for, but you guys still have rent. Rent is
Yeah.
still a thing. Food is still a thing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just wild that there are still independent artists
Yeah. And
making the making their way through the pandemic.
yeah, and there was like at the beginning of 2020, like those first couple months, like everyone was doing live streams and everything, but I think people got really burnt out on doing that after a while. Like I did a couple live streams at the beginning, and then after a while, it was just like, I want to be in person and like be like able to see shows and like play shows. And then so it's like, okay, well, I need to find something else basically to like, you know, keep music going. And that was like releasing music for me.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Even the live streams in themselves were, I think everyone was just over it. Artists, people seeing it on their
Yeah.
Facebook feed. Like,
Yeah.
everyone was just
I
done
mean,
with the
like
live
the
streams.
artists I loved were doing like live streams and I wasn't seeing all of them. Like I just, I watched a couple, but then after a while I was like, I just want to feel that energy in person and I would rather wait like and to be able to experience that again in person than like be watching it, alone in a room through my computer screen.
What was your first live show like?
So I grew up playing, folk music and I was always, with the guitar on stage and I was able to like, hide behind a microphone and a guitar and like, just sing my folk music. But I did my big first pop showcase on February 4th, 2020, literally like 3 weeks before everything shut down here. And at the time I had all these plans to play all these live shows and I had a bunch, booked. And I did this showcase in this giant warehouse that was like a backline for tours. And so there was like all the live music equipment in the world to be able to like really just like blow up this show that we did. And right before I went on stage, I was asking, I was standing with my publisher and like my band, and I was like, "What's the first lyrics to the opening song?" The song was Blush, and I was like, I don't remember the opening lyrics, and I was like definitely like blacking out from like fear. But then like once you get on stage, the worst part is like that walk to getting on stage and like seeing people for the first time. But like once you're on stage, specifically that one, like it just goes by in like 5 minutes. Like a 45-minute set easily feels like, 8 minutes, because you practice it so many times. You eventually just start going through the motions that like you have been in rehearsals for, and it just like in the blink of an eye is over.
Walking out on
Yeah.
stage, don't trip, don't trip, don't
Yeah.
trip.
Oh, that was 100% me, because I was in like this huge like red dress. I have to be like very extravagant on stage, and I was in this like gigantic like frilly red dress and like these big platform shoes, and I was like, I swear to God, if I trip in front of everybody, I'm canceling the show right here.
Your image in itself is wild. Like your Facebook feed is crazy. Like you've got the over the top clothes,
Mm-hmm.
the over the top makeup. Is that just how you dress like that daily, or is that just your?
Yeah. I love and just am obsessed with like fashion and makeup and being to express yourself through that. I think it's just an extension for me of like being an artist. It's like another form of creativity to me. It's like, the songwriting and like singing, but to be able to like have a visual aspect to like your career as well is just like so exciting to me. And growing up, I have two little sisters. My mom let us wear whatever we wanted, let us like, the most just ridiculous outfits. Like looking back on like pictures of myself as a kid, I'm just like, why did you let me wear that to school? Or why did you give me that bowl cut? But like my mom just had so many clothes and like purses and like makeup, and she always just encouraged us to like find creativity through fashion. And that really then led into like, me being on the internet in early high school and like discovering all these designers and just like, Tumblr and everything. It's like I was just exposed to so much fashion, and I got into makeup as well. But yeah, I just love being like over the top and just like, I don't know, looking like I'm always like going someplace extra fancy, even if I'm going to like a coffee shop to like go do work or like go to the grocery store. It's just, I don't know, it's like a both a passion of mine, part of my job, but just like a hobby as well. And I love clothes. You can't really see it, but I have like an entire huge clothing rack behind me that's all of like my stage clothes, which is like this like ridiculous just amount of tulle and lace and just everything.
I could just imagine you either like thrift shopping or going out. You're like that stage, that
Oh,
stage, that
no,
stage.
100%. I love thrift shopping, and I have bought so many things where I'm like, this will look good on stage one day. And I like have never worn it in like, person, because it's like these giant like ball gown dresses or, like jumpsuits or whatever, like crazy tall boots or something. And like they've never seen the light of day, but I'm like, this will look good in a photo shoot. This will look good on stage.
Just an excuse to buy it.
Oh, 100%. Any excuse to like buy an interesting like item of clothing for me, like I will 100% take it.
The cashier is looking at you like, what is this here? Oh, I'm a musician.
Yeah, exactly. I like Muse came out yesterday, and like I always try to do a little something to like celebrate it, because I'm kind of bad at celebrating like, I don't know, just things in my life. Like putting out a song is very exciting, but in my head when I put something out, I'm like, okay, what's the next song? Like I'm already working on something else. I'm like, okay, like we released it, time to work on something else. But I need to do a little something to celebrate, and have yet to do it. And in my head, I'm like, maybe I'll buy myself like a cool pair of shoes or like a jacket or something.
That's a funny way to celebrate stuff. Most people just go out and then here you are in
Yeah.
a jacket, shoes.
Yeah. I don't really like go out like out much. And so it's like for me, it's like, oh, I can buy like a glitter eyeshadow palette or something, something to I don't know, just like make me excited or something like that. So I have my eyes on a pair of shoes. So we'll see.
What's the most overrated makeup product that you have?
Most overrated.
Yeah.
I was really into like the 2016, 2017, like YouTube like guru phase. And so I just bought so much makeup during that time. Whereas now, like you might not believe it, but I've toned down my makeup quite a bit from what I used to wear it like I have crazy eyeliner on right now, but like it used to be way worse. And so I've recently got rid of a bunch of old makeup. One, because it expired, and two, because I was like, I don't know, like this anymore. So I recently threw away a bunch of matte eyeshadow palettes where now I just like straight up glitter. So yeah, I've done away with all my matte eyeshadows.
Getting rid of your goth face.
Yeah, exactly. I've gone through like every phase of like makeup and like fashion too. I've been there for every internet trend and everything. So like I think I've finally come to something that I like. And I can do it in like 10 minutes now.
The AMAVA trend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I do have a list of 4 questions to get to know you a little bit better,
Yeah.
kinda. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Probably pho. Pho is one of my favorite foods. There's this great restaurant here called Love Peace Pho. It's in Nashville, and they have the best pho. I dream about it, and just the broth is so good. They brew it for like 24 hours, and it's just incredible.
I
Yeah,
was not expecting pho.
yeah. I also love Italian food as well. So I make a really good spaghetti sauce, if I do say so myself.
Netflix or Disney Plus?
Uh, Netflix because they have Stranger Things and Queen's Gambit.
What are you watching at the moment?
I was just watching a rewatch of Normal People, which is on Hulu. I've seen it before, but I have been working on some exciting projects recently. And so I've been throwing it on in the background while I am doing my stuff on the computer. And I just have been kind of refalling in love with that show.
Do you ever, this isn't one of the questions, but do you ever feel like when you sit down, that you're wasting time? Like when you just relax? Or do you feel like you've done
Oh,
enough
yeah.
that day that you can sit down?
No, I'm 100% like the poster child for like toxic productivity for sure. Like I don't know like where that came from. I think it came from my family was always like very go go go. And it's like I can sit and relax for sure, but it's like there's always that voice in the back of my head saying you could be just doing something that's like furthering your career. And I've tried to get better at being like, okay, you can just like sit and relax and like watch like a couple hours of like TV and it like won't ruin your life. So I've been getting better at that and just like taking time to like do things that are outside of like me, doing music. Like I'm super into cooking, so like throw on some music and like cook. I play chess a lot, so I play a lot of like online chess. But yeah, definitely am somebody who cannot just like sit and relax.
um, Chess is crazy. You play a lot of
Yeah,
online chess.
yeah.
Like, how do you even get into online chess? Like, is it because you can't go out and play, or?
So I grew up being a part of like the middle school chess club, and I was like really interested in chess and everything because I was not good at debate club because I hated talking on stage, which is not funny being an artist. But I was like, I'm just gonna join the chess club instead. And I did that for a couple of years, and I loved it. And then I don't know, I just like grew up and like grew out of it. And then when I watched Queen's Gambit in the early quarantine, I think it was like December or something of 2020. It just like reignited my love for chess, and it's like something very um not mindless because it takes like a lot of like thought, but it was something like very technical, which is like for me being in music, it's like it's a lot of just like creative and you could do whatever you want. But it's like with chess, and I'm bad at like math and everything, and so it's like I don't really have like that analytical part of my brain, but with chess like I get to exercise that. So it's like I think about like what moves am I going to play, and I briefly tried to get into like studying chess theory over the year as well, and like that is just like I read a couple pages like a week, and it's just like sometimes I think the concept is like way too big for what my brain is allowing me to take it in. But I play like on chess.com, and you could just like play with like anybody in the world. But I've recently found out about a couple chess clubs in Nashville that I think I'm gonna go to, but we'll see if I can muster up the courage to go.
What's your win to lose ratio online?
You know, I probably win like 3 out of every 5, but I'm usually playing either my sisters who are like, I think I'm a little bit better than them. So it's like I do have a higher win ratio. But yeah, online is intimidating because it's like you have to sit there and like, think of a move that you're gonna make next. And I swear some people make them within like 8 seconds of you making a move. And so in my head, I'm like, well, I'm already losing if they can make it that fast because they know what they're doing. So yeah.
It's like you click, they go click, click. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
PlayStation or Xbox?
Um,
I don't know if you game.
I don't, but probably PlayStation just because my boyfriend has one. So I use it to control the TV sometimes to put on Netflix or Hulu or something.
Yeah, great media system though.
Yeah.
PlayStation's yeah, awesome. Great choice. What's your biggest conspiracy?
Biggest conspiracy. Oh man. I was really into like watching conspiracy theory. I didn't believe in a lot of them, but I would like just watch a lot of them in like early quarantine when I was super bored. Um, that's a really good question. I'm gonna have to come back on that one because I don't want to say one that's like really stupid, but it's just like because I've watched a video on like it's like definitely not true. It's not a conspiracy theory, I guess, but I love this one podcast called You're Wrong About, and it is just kind of like debunking basically like all of these conspiracy theories. And there was this great one about the Stanford prison experiment and how like really the whole experiment is like not what is taught like in your average high school psychology class. I really recommend that podcast though as well. It's a great one to, I don't know, just like tune out and like listen to and just like absorb.
Yeah. Well, I'd recommend this podcast too if you want to tune out, listen and absorb.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's conspiracies themselves are just crazy. I guess you got to really pick one and then it not be as crazy as what people want you to think you are.
Yeah.
What's
your biggest conspiracy?
Oh, don't even get me started. I did an interview with a guy last week, Nick Natoli, and we just dove deep into a lot of conspiracies.
Really?
And you guys are wild over there for conspiracies.
Really?
My biggest, doubt it. My biggest one would have to be the biggest would be 9/11. Like in itself is just, it just doesn't really make sense. But then again, not a lot of conspiracies do make sense. They all just kind of, but they're not that outrageous. They're not true. You know what I mean? Like they're just believable enough. You're like, okay, I can kind of get behind it.
Yeah. I don't know much about the 9/11 conspiracy, but like I did watch a lot of like just like out there on like a videos like top 10 conspiracy theories, like, and I would like cook and like listen to it and be like, okay.
Were you just about to say reptilian aliens?
Oh no.
No? Okay. No. It sounded like you're going to say it and then you just cut yourself off because that in itself is just crazy. I still don't understand it. It's a thing over there in America, apparently.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of definitely some crazy conspiracy theorists over here for sure.
Before we wrap this up, do you have anything to say to your Evergreen fan base?
I think I'm just like really excited to like meet new people too and just like bring them into like my world, because I definitely like working on this for so long, like you said, I guess I hadn't even thought about the fact that it's been like 10 to 13 years doing music. I know, just like has gone by so fast too, and it's like I don't really like think of all of that as like, oh, I like that's been my music career, but like it definitely has. But yeah, I'm just like really excited to like bring people into my world and just like, I don't know, get to know me better, both as an artist, but then also like, you know, as a person, and, you know, be able to share all I've been working on, you know, just with like new people.
Yeah. Well, when you say that it's been like it's gone by so fast, 3 years have just disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time. I'm 25, and when pandemic started, I was 23, and I just like can't even remember that like time between 23 and 25. And um you know, that's such like a growing period, like in your 20s, from like your early 20s to like your, I guess now I'm considered my mid 20s. um but it's like I don't even remember much of it, and it's like I don't know if I did like that natural growing that like should be a part of like your early 20s to your mid 20s. Like I feel like I as well as like everybody else like missed out on like, you know, 2 whole years. And both my sisters, like, you know, one of them missed out on the last half of their college, and now they're in their like, you know, their job, and it's like she just missed out on a whole like section basically of her life.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it's just like crazy. And I see the growth I've done in musically and like as an artist in 2 years, and I don't know like where I would have been as an artist, like, you know, had the pandemic haven't happened. It's like that like depresses me too much to think about, but also like I feel like I was able to do like a lot of, I don't know, just like analyzing my career, you know, during that time, just like sitting at home.
Hmm. Yeah, no, like you need to start making something, and then because you'd be bored out of your
Yeah.
mind sitting at home.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
guess
that's like why I took a couple months off, because I was just like at the beginning I was like I just need to like be really bored so that I can like not fall back in love with like, you know, music, because I never like fell out of love with it, but I was like, I don't know, just like come back to it in a way that like gets me really excited so that I can push through this time.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I just played a lot of chess. Apparently.
And to anyone who isn't following you, what do you have to say to them?
um the first thing that popped into my head was just saying follow me, but um yeah, I don't know, just I love when people like message me as well. I love talking to people like over DMs, and yeah, just like getting to know people basically. And yeah, I don't know, like as much as like I love want people to like get to know me, I also want to get to know like my fans and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Do you feel like your fans are crazy? Do you have a cult following?
I don't think I have a cult following quite yet, but I hope to at some point, because I have been a part of many cult followings like for certain artists, and just like that community, especially like on the internet. And like I remember, you know, being 17, 18 and being a part of like the One Direction like fandom and like Taylor Swift and all that. And it's like that sense of community cannot be replicated like anywhere else, especially like when it's just like online and on like a certain social media. It's like that community can be so important, especially like in your teens. It's like-minded people. And I don't know, I've made many great friends over the internet because we've loved certain artists. And I really hope that other people can, I don't know, find that as well within like, you know, my career and my artistry.
You get noticed on the street yet of Nashville?
One time I was walking into a coffee shop and somebody rolled down the window and yelled AMAVA. And to this day, I have no idea who it was. I don't know if it was like a friend of mine, like playing a joke on me, but they never came forward and told me it was. Um, but yeah, somebody yelled my name and I like whipped around. And by that point, like the car had like drove off. And I was like, I can't tell if that was like somebody seriously recognizing me or like a friend of a friend, or I don't know. But yeah, no one's ever like stopped me in the street. And, you know, um, I would be very caught off guard, but like in a good way, obviously.
Well, yeah, your music career is only kind of just starting in a
Yeah,
way.
especially with this release, I do feel like it's kind of just starting, because with this release, I like am have been able to like have a TikTok following, quote, in like the past 6 months, and like really be able to expand that. And like I didn't have that in my last couple releases, and I've just like noticed how helpful that has been with this one, and like really been able to like pull people into my world. And yeah, I don't know, just like the followers that I do have on TikTok, like I love talking about fashion and makeup and everything, and music is also just an extension of like what I do on TikTok. um yeah, so I've just noticed like this release has just been great so far. And yeah, I've really enjoyed reading all the press, and yeah, it's just been incredible.
Do you feel like you'd work with more electronic music artists, or you're going to
Yes,
stick to your own type of production?
I would love to work with other artists. I would love to write for other artists as well. I do songwriting sessions for both myself and then other artists, and I would love to like expand into that eventually and have like, you know, not like a side project writing for other artists, but just be able to be me as AMAVA, like writing for, you know, other musicians. But I would love to like put out a song with another artist, or like work with just like, you know, any and all producers. And yeah, I there's like a list of like artists I would like love to work with, and like, you know, eventually I want to work my way up to like the big ones. And yeah, I very much want to like expand out of like just me being a singular, like, you know, entity of music.
I have to ask, who's on the top of that list?
Oh gosh, I would say probably Charlie XCX or like Rina Sawayama. Just like basically all the women at like the top of their careers, like in the pop sphere and like hyper pop sphere. I just think that they go above and beyond like what it means to be an artist. And yeah, they're just like so inspiring to like watch their career and like the trajectory that they've been on, and just like the way that they like command the stage is just like so inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amava, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast interview I've ever done. So this is
First
really
interview?
exciting. Yeah. Like
Oh,
first um like Zoom podcast interview. I've done like written interviews before, but like first, so very exciting.
oh, I hope it wasn't too nerve-wracking.
No, not at all. I definitely can like talk for hours because I talk really fast when I'm nervous. But yeah, this is great. Thank you so much. This